My mom forced me to share a room with her for her new boyfriend's daughter. I moved out. My estranged dad stepped in, and you won't believe what happened next. I never really knew what it was like to have a complete family. My dad, Mark, 43M, left when I was just 2 years old. Mom, 42F, always told me it was because he couldn't handle the responsibility of being a parent. I'm Jamie, 17F, and for as long as I can remember, it's just been mom and me against the world. Growing up, I'd watch other kids with their dads at school events or in the park, and I'd feel this hollow ache in my chest. Mom tried her best to fill that void. She'd come to my soccer games cheering louder than anyone else, help me with my science projects, and even attempted to teach me how to ride a bike, which ended with both of us covered in band-aids, but laughing nonetheless. Mom worked really hard to give me a good life. She's a nurse at the local hospital, often taking extra shifts to make ends meet. I remember countless nights falling asleep to the sound of her typing up patient reports long after her shift had ended. Despite the long hours, she always made time for me. Our Friday night movie marathons became a sacred tradition, complete with homemade popcorn and pillow forts. As for my dad, Mark, he was more of a concept than a real person in my life. He'd send birthday cards sometimes, usually with a $20 bill tucked inside. No personal message, just a generic happy birthday and his signature. Mom always said he was welcome to be part of my life if he wanted, but he never made the effort. When I was younger, I'd obsess over those cards, trying to decipher some hidden meaning in his handwriting. But as I got older, I just accepted that's how things were. I threw myself into art as a way to express all the complicated feelings I had about my family situation. My room became a mini gallery of paintings and sketches. Mom always encouraged my creativity, even when I went through a phase of painting everything in various shades of black. My angsty preteen years were a trip. Things changed last year when Mom met Derek, 45M, at her friend Sarah's barbecue. Sarah had been trying to set Mom up for years, but Mom always declined, saying she was too busy with work and raising me. But this time, something clicked. I remember Mom coming home from that barbecue with a spark in her eyes I hadn't seen before. At first, I was happy for her. Derek seemed nice enough. He'd come over for dinner, bringing flowers for Mom and always asking about my day at school. He works as an architect and even helped me with my art project once, showing me how to create better perspective in my drawings. I thought maybe this was our chance at having a complete family. But things started to change when they got more serious. Mom began spending more time with Derek, and our Friday movie nights became less frequent. I tried not to be jealous, reminding myself that Mom deserved to have someone special in her life after all these years of just focusing on me. About 6 months into their relationship, Mom sat me down for a talk. I thought maybe she was going to tell me they were getting married or something. Instead, she dropped a bombshell: Derek was moving in with us. I was shocked because it felt too soon, but I didn't want to rain on her parade. She looked so happy, and I thought maybe I was just being selfish. The problem started when Derek actually moved in last month. He brought his daughter, Lily, 15F, with him. This was news to me. Mom had never mentioned Derek had a kid. Apparently, Lily's mom passed away when she was young, and she's been living with Derek ever since. I felt blindsided. Not only was I getting a stepdad I barely knew, but I was also suddenly acquiring a stepsister. Our house isn't huge, but it was always comfortable for Mom and me. We have 3 bedrooms, one for each of us, and a guest room that doubled as my art studio. When Derek and Lily moved in, Mom suggested that Lily take the guest room and I share with her. I was upset but tried to be understanding. After all, Lily was younger and probably needed her own space to adjust to the new living situation. Sharing a room with Mom has been tough. I'm a teenager and need my privacy. Plus, Mom snores, which makes it hard for me to sleep. I've been struggling in school because I'm always tired. My art teacher, Ms. Johnson, even pulled me aside last week to ask if everything was okay at home because my work hasn't been up to its usual standard. When I tried to talk to Mom about it, she just said I needed to adjust and be more welcoming to our new family members. She reminded me of all the times we'd talked about wanting a bigger family, but this wasn't what I had in mind. I wanted a dad who'd been there from the beginning, not a ready-made family that was disrupting everything I knew. Things got worse last week when I overheard Derek and Mom talking about redecorating the guest room, now Lily's room, to make it more her style. They were planning to buy her new furniture and even repaint the walls. Meanwhile, I'm sleeping on an air mattress in Mom's room, surrounded by boxes of my stuff that doesn't fit anywhere else. I couldn't hold it in anymore and confronted Mom. I asked her why Lily gets her own room while I'm forced to share. I reminded her that this was my home first, that I've lived here my whole life, and suddenly I'm the one who has to give up my space? Mom got defensive and said I was being selfish and that I should be happy we have a family now. She said Lily needed her own space because she's still adjusting to the move. But what about my adjustment? I'm the one who's had to give up my room, my privacy, and even my art space. The living room is always occupied by Derek watching sports or Lily and her new school friends hanging out. I have nowhere to paint or draw anymore, and it feels like a part of me is slowly disappearing. I feel like I'm being pushed aside in my own home. Derek and Lily have taken over, and Mom seems to care more about making them comfortable than about my feelings. Last night, I found some of my old artwork that used to hang in the hallway stuffed in a box in the garage. When I asked Mom about it, she said she thought it might make Lily uncomfortable to see so many reminders that this was our home before they moved in. It felt like she was trying to erase my presence from the house. I don't know what to do. I've tried talking to Mom, but she doesn't listen. She's so focused on making this new family work that she can't see how much it's hurting me. I'm tempted to reach out to my dad, even though we're not close, just to have someone on my side. But I'm scared that might make things even worse with Mom. Sometimes I find myself looking at those old birthday cards from my dad, wondering if things would be different if he had stayed. Would Mom be so eager to replace our life with this new family? Would I feel so lost and out of place in my own home? Am I being unreasonable here? Should I just suck it up and accept that this is how things are now? Or do I have a right to be upset about losing my space, my privacy, and it feels like my place in my mom's life? First update: it's been about a month since my last post, and I wish I could say things have gotten better, but they've only gotten worse. I took some of the advice from the comments and tried to have another calm conversation with Mom. I prepared what I wanted to say, even practicing in front of the mirror to make sure I wouldn't get too emotional. I chose a time when Derek and Lily were out, hoping Mom would be more receptive without them around. I explained how the lack of privacy was affecting my schoolwork and mental health. I told her about how Ms. Johnson had noticed a decline in my artwork, and how I felt like I was losing a part of myself without a space to create. I even suggested we look into bunk beds for her room to at least give me some semblance of my own space. Mom seemed to listen at first. She had that concerned look on her face that I remember from when I was little and would come to her with scraped knees or hurt feelings. For a moment, I thought maybe she was finally understanding how serious this was for me. But then Derek walked in. He'd come home early from work, and when he heard what we were discussing, he got upset. He said I was being ungrateful and that I should be thankful they didn't kick me out entirely. He went on about how much they do for me, how I have a roof over my head and food on the table. Mom didn't even defend me. She just stood there silently while Derek ranted about how I needed to grow up and stop being so selfish. I was stunned. This man who'd only been in my life for a few months was telling me I should be grateful to live in my own home. And Mom, who had always been my fierce protector, said nothing. It felt like the final betrayal. After that confrontation, I knew I needed to do something. I remembered an old birthday card from my dad that I'd kept hidden in my journal. It had his email address on it. With shaking hands, I typed out a message to him, explaining everything that had been happening. I didn't expect much. After all, he'd never shown much interest in my life before. To my surprise, he responded quickly. His message was full of apologies for not being there for me and promises to make things right. At first, I was skeptical. Where had this concern been for the past 15 years? But as we started talking more regularly, I found myself looking forward to our conversations. Dad seemed genuinely interested in my life. He asked about school, my hobbies, and even remembered details about things I'd mentioned in previous conversations. When I told him about my art, he asked to see some of my work. I sent him a few photos of my paintings, and he responded with specific comments about each one. It felt nice to have someone actually listening to me and valuing my interests. About 2 weeks ago, Dad dropped a bombshell. He said he'd been thinking a lot about our relationship and wanted to make up for lost time. He asked if I'd consider moving in with him. He lives in the same city, about 30 minutes away, and said I could keep going to my current school. He even offered to set up an art studio for me in his spare room. I was conflicted. On one hand, I've barely known my dad for most of my life. What if he changed his mind once I moved in? What if he was just feeling guilty and would lose interest once the novelty wore off? On the other hand, things at home with Mom, Derek, and Lily were becoming unbearable. Lily had started inviting friends over all the time, and they'd take over the living room, leaving me with nowhere to study or relax. After a lot of thought, I decided to tell Mom about Dad's offer. I thought maybe it would be a wake-up call for her to realize how serious the situation was. I chose a moment when we were alone, hoping she'd be more receptive without Derek around. I was wrong. Mom exploded. She accused me of betraying her and said I was choosing an absent father over her after everything she'd done for me. She brought up every sacrifice she'd ever made, every late night she'd worked to provide for me. She said I was ungrateful and that she couldn't believe I would even consider leaving her for a man who had abandoned us. The argument got heated, and Derek got involved again. He suggested that maybe it would be better if I did leave, saying I was causing too much stress in the household. He said that Lily was settling in well and that my attitude was disrupting the family harmony they were trying to build. Mom didn't contradict him, which hurt more than anything else. That was the last straw for me. I packed a bag and called my dad. He came to pick me up, and I've been staying with him for the past week. It's been an adjustment, but he's really trying to make me feel comfortable. He cleared out his home office to make a bedroom for me and even took time off work to help me settle in. He's been patient with me as I navigate this new living situation, giving me space when I need it but also making an effort to connect. One of the first things Dad did was take me shopping for art supplies. He let me pick out whatever I wanted, saying he wanted to support my passion. He's even started asking me to teach him about different art techniques, and we've had a few painting sessions together. It's awkward and his attempts are pretty terrible, but it means a lot that he's trying. Mom has been calling and texting nonstop, alternating between angry messages and pleading for me to come home. She's accused Dad of trying to buy my affection and says that I'm tearing our family apart. Derek has also called a few times, his messages oscillating between apologies and thinly veiled threats about how this decision could affect my future. I'm not sure what to do now. Part of me wants to go back because I feel guilty. Mom sacrificed so much for me, and I know she must be hurting. But another part of me is enjoying having my own space and feeling valued. Dad seems genuinely interested in getting to know me and supporting my interests. I'm torn between giving Mom another chance and staying with Dad. I don't want to lose my relationship with Mom, but I also don't want to go back to feeling like a second-class citizen in my own home. The stability I'm feeling at Dad's place is something I haven't experienced in a long time, but is it wrong to choose this over the mother who raised me? I'm also worried about the long-term consequences of this decision. Will this create a permanent rift between me and Mom? Am I being selfish for choosing my own comfort over her happiness? And what if things don't work out with Dad? Will I have burned all my bridges? Any advice on how to handle this situation would be greatly appreciated. I feel like I'm standing at a crossroads, and I'm terrified of making the wrong choice. Second update: it's been 2 months since I moved in with my dad, and a lot has happened. Living with Dad has been an adjustment, but overall, it's been good. He's really trying to make up for lost time. We've been having weekly movie nights, reminiscent of the ones I used to have with Mom, but with a twist. Dad lets me choose the movies and always has a sketch pad ready in case I feel inspired during the film. He's even taken an interest in my art, helping me set up a small studio space in the spare room. Last week, he surprised me by taking me to an art supply store and letting me pick out an easel and some high-quality paints. When I hesitated because of the price, he just smiled and said, "Consider it 15 years of missed birthday presents." There have been awkward moments, of course. Sometimes I catch Dad looking at me with this sad, wistful expression, and I know he's thinking about all the years he missed. We've had a few conversations about why he left, and while it's been painful, I appreciate his honesty. He admitted he was young and scared, and that he regrets not being there for me. It doesn't erase the past, but it helps to understand. About a month ago, Mom showed up unannounced at Dad's place. She was a mess, crying and begging me to come home. She said she'd realized how badly she'd messed up and promised things would be different if I came back. She told me she'd been doing a lot of thinking and understood now how unfair it had been to expect me to give up my space and adjust to such big changes without considering my feelings. Dad let us talk privately, and I could tell he was trying not to influence my decision. It was hard seeing Mom so upset, and part of me wanted to go back with her right then. But I also remembered how it felt to be ignored and pushed aside in my own home. I told Mom I needed time to think. The next day, she called and dropped another bombshell. She said she'd kicked Derek and Lily out. She swore she'd put me first from now on and that she wanted to rebuild our relationship. I was shocked and felt a mix of guilt and relief. Part of me was glad that Mom had chosen me, but another part felt terrible for Lily, who was innocent in all of this. After talking it over with Dad, I decided to give Mom another chance. We agreed I'd spend weekdays with her and weekends with Dad. It was awkward at first, but Mom really seemed to be trying. My old room was exactly as I'd left it, and she'd even bought me some new art supplies as a peace offering. We started having dinner together every night, just the two of us, like old times. Mom asked about my art and even suggested we take an art class together. Things were going okay until last week. I came home from school early because I wasn't feeling well and found Derek's car in the driveway. My heart sank. When I went inside, I overheard Mom and Derek talking in the kitchen. They were discussing how to break the news to me that Derek and Lily were moving back in. I couldn't believe it. Mom had lied to me again. All her promises about putting me first suddenly felt hollow. I confronted them, and Mom tried to explain that she and Derek had been working things out. She said they realized they'd handled everything wrong before and wanted to try again, this time with everyone's feelings in mind. Derek chimed in, saying they'd been looking at bigger houses where everyone could have their own room. He talked about how Lily had been struggling without me around, how she looked up to me as a big sister. But all I could think about was how quickly Mom had gone back on her word. I didn't stay to hear the rest. I packed a bag and went straight to Dad's. When I told him what happened, he was furious. He called Mom and they had a heated argument. I could hear Mom crying through the phone, saying she just wanted our family to be whole. Dad then did something that surprised me. He asked to speak to Derek. I couldn't hear the whole conversation, but Dad was calm and firm. When he hung up, he told me that he'd made it clear to both of them that my well-being came first, and if they couldn't prioritize that, he would fight for full custody. I'm back at Dad's full-time now. Mom keeps trying to contact me, but I'm not ready to talk to her yet. I feel betrayed and manipulated. It's like she only kicked Derek out to get me back, not because she actually understood how I felt. Dad has been incredibly supportive, even offering to look into therapy for me to help process everything that's happened. I'm still processing my feelings about all of this. I love my mom, but I don't know if I can trust her anymore. At the same time, I'm getting to know my dad and building a relationship I never thought I'd have. It's a lot to handle, and I'm not sure what the future holds for our family dynamics. Third update: it's been 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share how things have progressed. I've been living with Dad full-time, and it's been really good for me. We've fallen into a comfortable routine, and I feel like I have a stable home life for the first time in a long while. Dad convinced me to try therapy, and it's been helping me process everything that happened with Mom. My therapist, Dr. Martinez, has been great at helping me understand my feelings and set healthy boundaries. We've been working on my trust issues and how to communicate my needs more effectively. As for Mom, we've slowly been rebuilding our relationship. At first, I was hesitant to even talk to her, but Dr. Martinez encouraged me to at least hear her out. We started with short phone calls, which gradually became longer conversations. About 2 months ago, Mom asked if we could meet in person. We met at a cafe, neutral ground for both of us. She apologized again for everything that had happened and admitted she'd been seeing a therapist too. She said she realized she had been so afraid of being alone that she'd prioritized her relationship with Derek over her relationship with me. Mom told me that she and Derek had broken up for good. She said she needed to focus on herself and on repairing our relationship. I appreciated her honesty, but I made it clear that I wasn't ready to move back in with her. We agreed to take things slow and rebuild our trust gradually. We've been having weekly dinners together, sometimes with Dad joining us. It's a bit awkward, but they're both making an effort to co-parent peacefully. Mom has even started taking an interest in my art, something she never really did before. Last week, she came to my school art show and seemed genuinely proud of my work. As for me, I'm doing much better. My grades have improved, and I've been accepted into a great art program for college next year. Dad has been incredibly supportive, helping me with applications and even taking me on college tours. He's promised to help set up an art studio in my dorm room, which I'm really excited about. I'm still living with Dad and plan to stay with him until I leave for college. Mom and I are slowly rebuilding trust, but it's going to take time. I'm just grateful to have 2 parents who are now putting in the effort to be there for me. This whole experience has taught me a lot about standing up for myself and the importance of communication. While it was a difficult journey, I feel like